Welcome back, shop rats. Today we're going to talk about where I see things heading in the state of the hobby. It has a lot to do with fabricating and purchasing parts, and well, there's just going to be stuff. So let's watch the show intro. We'll see you in about 30 seconds. I'm Mike, and this is My Car Shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem-solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
There's always a lot of discussion and controversy about making parts and buying parts, and we've kind of beat that horse to death in many ways. But as I was thinking about things the last couple of days and contemplating purchasing the trunk floor for the Challenger, and one of the things that just completely has caught me off guard is the cost of shipping, and that's only going to get worse. I really do fear that we are on the verge of hyperinflationism, which is going to really bring some changes about in this hobby as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So the cost of shipping and the cost of the materials and so forth, and having just purchased a stack of sheet metal at very greatly discounted prices because of it being like leftovers and blems, and I got a deal. I have to go pick it up, but a stack of metal is waiting for me. It caused me to just think about the direction the hobby's going. One of the things that I've noticed, especially in some of the discussion forums that I'm involved with, or at least that I stalk and lurk. I don't often participate much anymore in those things for various reasons. But people commenting on availability of parts is becoming a real problem. Some things lead times are 3, 6, 9, even 12 months out. A lot of parts are becoming unavailable. So it's caused me to think particularly about some of the crap that I've gotten about fabricating and my crude fabricating and all the stuff that I'm doing, and realizing that right now, sure, this stuff is available, or at least some of it's available or could be available, but is that going to be true? I think we have kind of become frog in a pot when it comes to parts availability. We're pretty much spoiled babies as far as I'm concerned, and I think we all feel quite entitled in many ways. The expectation is that what we want we should be able to get, and having been involved in both engineering and manufacturing for many years, I think we fail to realize how spoiled we have been with the availability of aftermarket and replacement parts for all of these classic cars and hot rods that we so much love to build. I was going back and thinking about when I actually started doing some of this work. Probably started doing my first body work in 79 or 80. I know I was living in Kentucky, and my dad had purchased a 72 Ford Pinto that needed some polish and some things, and he bought some very crude tools, but I did some of the polishing and cleaning up on that car, and I was always interested in cars, and my buddy Ron had been providing me with a subscription to CarCraft magazine at that point for a year or two, so I was very much into hot rods and, of course, 80s chicks, because the 80s. I married an 80s chick, so that should tell you something. Anyway, what was available back in those days was so minimal and so expensive. Even like when I got my 68 Dart in 84, which was not my first car by any means, but it had some damage on the driver's side quarter panel, and the 68 Dart GT, not the GTS, by the way. The quarter panel, I don't even think you could get one. Maybe if you could, it was a couple grand right through Mopar, but there was nothing in the aftermarket for that car at that point that I was aware of. And even finding used parts to hang a used quarter on that car was quite pricey. And of course, the skill were just way beyond what I could do. So, it was at that point sheet metal, mostly galvanized because that's what I had available, and pop rivets and Bondo. And I think we forget from whence we've come. And I think we've lost in many ways that innovative, creative thing that we used to have from the spirit of the hot rodder from way back in the 40s and the 50s of innovation and make do and do what it takes to make the car function and look good. We've really become kind of spoiled and entitled in the hobby. If I have one person tell me once, I have it happen a dozen times a week, why are you wasting your time doing all of this when you can just buy the parts? That's fine. They're available now, but in a year or 2 or 5, if they're not, if things go the direction that they could go, what are we going to do? There's going to quickly become a massive shortage of even, scrap carts, junk cars that we can part out and take stuff from. Already we are 40, 50 years or more into these cars being crushed, and a lot of them have been stripped and parted. And imagine what the prices are going to do for the guys that have old aftermarket parts laying around or have cut up some of these cars and have some decent sheet metals stockpiled. And, well, what are we going to do? I know that's not where we're at. I get it. It is easier to just buy the stuff. But it's made me ponder. It's made me think. It's kind of made me step back and say, what kind of skill sets are many of us going to have to learn because we've never had to, because of the huge glut and availability of parts, not just from one source, but from many sources. As both a former engineer and a business person, the one thing that I've questioned right along is how can these companies afford the cost of tooling and make any profit on this stuff? The margins have to be pretty small, I would think. I know what molds and stamps kind of cost. Now, I know that most of this stuff is low production, so they're not molds that are necessarily high wear molds because they're not cranking out millions of parts. But still, they're expensive. And when that tooling starts to wear out, and they have to start replacing some of that tooling, my question is, are they going to? Is there a big enough market for some of these parts to justify that kind of cost? And what's going to happen to part costs as metal? The cost of metal has more than doubled in the last year, and cost of shipping has gotten so high, and I'm predicting that a part that we're paying $500 for now, plus a couple $100 in shipping, is likely to double and be more like $1,000 and $400 in shipping, if we can even get it. And the reality is that's probably going to put a pretty big kink in the hobby and even in the professional industry. And so that makes me ask the question, a lot of people are probably going to abandon the hobby because they can't afford it, or they're going to get really resourceful, which is where My Car Shop comes in, because we're kind of laying the groundwork for people who want to learn how to make their own stuff. Thoughts that went along with that is, when there are deep pockets, it's really probably not going to much matter what the cost is. But I've been concerned for a long time, and we've probably talked about it before, at how much of this is just becoming a money game. And the one with the deepest pockets is the one who seems to win. And I quite frankly even see that in fabrication. I purposely have kept my tools to a minimum and kept the equipment that I have on the cheap side to show what an average guy with an average budget can do. I really appreciate what Tony does over at Fitzy Fabrication, because he does almost everything with just hand tools. And that's pretty incredible, and I respect that. My take is a little different than his. Neither is right nor wrong. I think most people over time can afford to spend a couple $100 here and there. I mean, I'm looking at Eastwood's mini English wheel right now and its versatility, and realizing that for most of what I need to do, because of the way they've designed that with that rotating head, it'll probably do what a large English wheel would do for most of what I need. And I don't need one of these monster English wheels. I'd like one, but I don't have the shop space, and so that's always a consideration. And cost. An English wheel is thousands of dollars, and this one is $300, I think. I haven't bought it, but I'm thinking about it because of that pan under the rear window and its complex curves. And I think that would be a fun challenge. Excuse me. I think that would be a fun challenge to make that part. But my point here is that I've also seen the same thing in the fabrication world, that guys just throw thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars at buying all these tools and equipment. And it's, for many people, I'm not knocking the skills to use those pieces of equipment at all. Don't misunderstand me. But in many cases, again, it feels like this giant measuring contest, and who has the most tools wins. And I just don't take that approach. And the funny part of this is, it kind of comes across as though people with a wealth mindset, but quite frankly, that's not a wealth mindset at all. In other areas of life in my consulting, I talk about the difference between wealthy people and rich people. And rich people are usually high cash flow, high spenders, and they don't necessarily have a ton of money. They're not truly wealthy. Wealthy people are usually very frugal. They don't skimp, they don't make do, but they're usually very frugal, and the things that they spend their money on are well thought out, and they get the most bang for their buck. They definitely don't buy cheap, they buy quality, but they're not people who spend huge amounts of money just because they have it. Because if they spent huge amounts of money because they have it, then they wouldn't have huge amounts of money. And I don't know. I'm by no means am I a wealthy person, but I really work hard to have a wealth mindset and not a rich mindset. I don't have a lot of respect for, if it's your money, do what you want. But I don't have a lot of respect for people who just spend money like water, and they make huge money, but they spend huge money, and at the end of the day, they really don't have anything. I just don't think that's wise. And, in my circumstance, I've never had a lot, so I've always learned how to live fairly frugal and stretch my buck as far as I can. But it was interesting, these two things together, because I feel the money very well could dry up. And then what are we going to do? I don't know. These are just my thoughts today. I don't have any massive conclusions. This isn't a come to Jesus moment and turn your life around or anything like that. It's just maybe sharing a little bit more of my philosophy and my thinking. But it's more just sharing my thoughts at the moment with you, which is what most of these Talk About It Tuesdays are. So, it's a little ride along here in this Mini, which I'm not sure you've seen before. And I'm on my way to do a job this morning down in the city, so it's an hour drive. And so more rambling for a Talk About It Tuesday. All right, I'll stop. Drop your thoughts down there in the comments. What are you thinking? And I want to be very clear. You make your choices. I don't judge. At least I try not to. I'm sure I do. Everybody judges. But I don't mean to be judgmental. There's just things that I struggle with, and I share them with you honestly and transparently as much as I can. And This is just my thinking today, and everybody's perspective is valid, and I don't dismiss that. We all choose our perspective, and we all choose our attitude, and we all choose the way we live within the confines of the context of what we can do and what we can't do. So anyway, I'll shut up. I'll quit rambling. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We're on the Instagramma. We're on the Face thing. We're here on the YouTube /My Car Shop across the board. We've tried to be consistent. So that'll do it. And one more thing. It is very important. I don't want you to forget. It can change your life.
Rock!